Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to introduce you to a fantastic colleague, Dr. Vastaras from the University of North Carolina. He is in international business and an absolutely prolific person, has published in the top journals, and has been the founder of something which we can now benefit unbelievably in times like this, because 10 years ago he started with a virtual world, which I found fascinating at the time, and he got loads of awards and prizes for that. With that, he started on a teaching level, combining our international business curriculum across the globe, creating a community of teaching lecturers, students, but also businesses. And then out of that developed basically a fascinating research platform with a huge number of people being able to publish with the data generated in that. So I'm absolutely thrilled that our colleagues joining nicely also, and that we have Vas giving us first introduction into what X-Culture is, then how people can benefit from it, and absolutely also from a research perspective. So I give it over to you, Vas, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and that's quite an introduction, so very flattering. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So I'll use a few slides to guide my review of what X-Culture is. And so X-Culture is a teaching platform, a business crowdsourcing platform, a research platform. But to explain what it is and how it works, I'll give you a 5-minute sort of historic overview where we came from and what we do. So the whole idea, I wish I could say that I had some big vision and creative thinking when I came up with that idea, but the truth was much more prosaic, much more simple. The problem was that I was teaching international business here at the University of North Carolina in Greensboro. And I would be in front of my student audience, explaining to them that doing business with Ukrainians is different than doing business with Americans. And they would look at me and not fully understand what I'm trying to say. The feeling was as if I was trying to teach them how to swim on a football field. You know, you have to get into the water to fully understand, you know, what it feels to be in the water. And so the idea was extremely simple and primitive at that time. So the point was that I would find a different professor in a different country who also teaches international business. And my students and that professor's students would be put in international teams and sort of work across the time zone differences, cultural differences, institutional differences, and experience in real life what I'm trying to explain to them in the classroom. And so all I did was I sent out an email looking for that professor to join me. And so I sent it out towards the end of the day, and surprisingly, within a couple of hours, I got dozens of responses. And so the first time we did it, we had 7 universities from 7 different countries. But over time, the population, the size has been growing. So this semester, we actually have 6.5 thousand students. They come from 187 universities, if my count is correct. And so if you look at the locations of the universities, we have 44 countries this semester. But if you look at the locations of the students, and we have many students who are either international students taking courses from overseas, but we also have some non-student participants now. So this semester we have 89 countries by the current location of the students. And then all 6 continents, all major island groups represented. So we have a very nice multicultural, multinational group. And so X-Culture essentially is us putting those students in international teams, usually about 6 students per team, 7 sometimes, where each student is in a different country. And so the main purpose, the main idea is that the students will complete a project working with people from those different countries, continents, time zones, cultures, institutional differences. And so the main idea is that they will learn international business by working on something with people from different countries. But many things have happened since that original idea. And so they led to a very different sort of type of project. Like, for example, in 2013, one big change happened. One of our professors was doing some work with Mercedes-Benz, working on some ideas for a marketing strategy or something like that. And so they were brainstorming ideas. And so the professor suggested that maybe we should include ex-culture students in that discussion. At that time, there must have been about 1,000 of them, maybe a little bit more. And so they contacted me and said, would you like your students to work on this challenge from Mercedes-Benz? And I really liked it. I mean, all of a sudden it became sort of real live business, because in the first couple of years, we gave students some hypothetical case studies to work on. They needed to write like a business plan for a hypothetical company. And so we tried it with Mercedes-Benz first. It worked very well. The students came up with a lot of good ideas. We even had one of those ex-culture symposia hosted by Mercedes-Benz in Turkey, in Istanbul. They have a big, huge factory there. They make buses and trucks there. And so that worked very well. The students liked it much more. And so ever since, we would select a group of companies that ask students for help. So this semester, for example, we have 16 companies. And so they come from all kinds of industries. We have a company that makes mineral water, a company from Lithuania, a company from Italy that makes wine, a winery. We have a bunch of IT companies, a financial institution, a law firm, companies that make shoes, companies that make clothing, cars, retailers, all kinds of, even little apps and some startups that make some, like very peculiar, interesting products. And so each company comes from a different industry, has a different product, comes from a different country usually. And so the students this way can choose the challenge, the client that they like most, where they can provide the most help. And so essentially now ex-culture has sort of two big benefits. One is that cross-cultural competition, cross-cultural collaboration, but also two, business consulting. And so the students essentially serve as business consultants, working for a real client, working on a real life, real international business challenge, trying to help that client solve that challenge. And so in most of the cases, it doesn't have to be this, but in most of the cases, the clients essentially ask the following. Like, for example, this morning we had a webinar with the Lithuanian mineral water maker, BMW. It's the abbreviation like the BMW car maker, but it actually stands for the name of the company, the location, BM, and W for water. And so, yeah, they have a very typical challenge. So they say, we make mineral water. We sell it in the Baltic countries, in some Eastern European countries, in some Western European countries. They just got a very big contract with Costco to sell mineral water in Japan and the Philippines. So they already work in a few markets, but they want to expand into more markets. And so they're basically asking students to conduct competition analysis, do market research, then identify the most promising new markets for this company. So where else can we sell our mineral water? Then for that market, do some research, see how the customer tastes, work are, how the retailers choose their suppliers, maybe go interview some friends and ask them how they decide what kind of water they buy to understand the psychology of the consumers. Maybe go interview some local retailers and ask them how they decide what kind of products they buy, and maybe inquire if they would be interested in buying a product from Lithuania. And once you collect all that information, then develop a strategy for entry in that market that you believe has the potential. So what would be the best market entry mode? What would be the best mode of distribution? What would be the best pricing strategy? What would be the marketing strategy? If we need to hire some local representatives, as this company wants to do, what is the best way to hire people in that market? How do we compensate them? How do we motivate them? How do we design their work schedule and things like that? And then obviously logistics. So what's the best way to ship our product to that market? Is there any certification, customs duties, things like that? So for the students, it's an opportunity to sort of put to real life, a real life test, but also work in a real life on the theories and methods and concepts that they have been learning in their business classes. So, the students probably have taken some marketing classes, logistics, strategy, HR. And so here is the opportunity to apply all of that in real life. For the company, it's a big advantage because the company is able to, one, get many interesting ideas from the students. And again, think about it. We have over 6,000 students. And so on average, there would be, let's say, 500 working on each challenge. So you have 500 people who work on your challenge for 5 to 10 hours a week for essentially the whole semester. So that comes up to about 20,000 hours of work that the company sort of gets for free. But importantly, it's not really that work that they do on all that research that they do, although that is very useful. The point here is that the students come from different backgrounds, from different countries. And so often they bring ideas that are not, how should I put it? It is not the product of students being smart or creative. It is the product of diversity. So maybe someone in, I don't know, the UK, in Japan, in China, in Ghana, saw a similar company do something creative, maybe came up with an interesting idea for a viral marketing campaign, or maybe they came up with some interesting marketing message, or maybe they do an interesting way to distribute the product. And so in many cases, the best ideas come not so much from sort of creativity per se, but just because there are so many people, somebody is bound to either know something that the company doesn't know, or know someone that, you know, the company doesn't know, or has seen something or has read something. And so when you put it all together, even if 9 out of 10 ideas are bad, 1 in 10 is actually pretty good, and 1 in 100 is like really, really good. So we've had many cases when the companies would say like, wow, this is so good. I mean, we never thought about that. We even had companies change their own name because the students in their overwhelming sort of, you know, numbers were saying, no, that this name doesn't sound good. You might want to think about something else. Like, for example, we have this company called Unicheck, called now Unicheck. So they specialize in plagiarism detection. So kind of like Turnitin. So in fact, now they're merging with Turnitin. But anyway, at the time when they participated, they were a competitor to the Turnitin platform that detects plagiarism. And so students from all around the world were saying that the old name, Unplag, kind of didn't sound, you know, good. And so one team came up with the name Unicheck, and the company liked it. And so they literally changed the company name. So sometimes it's, you know, really big decisions, not only like a new contract or a new country where they sell the product, but, you know, big pivotal moments for the whole company. Now, in terms of communication and platform, we thought about building a whole platform for X-Culture, you know, essentially, you know, a place where students would meet and discuss and, you know, communicate and collaborate. But then we decided that it would not be a very effective and useful method for students to sort of learn. And so what we do now instead is we train students before they are placed on teams in how to use all kinds of online collaboration technologies, from Google Docs to Dropbox to Zoom, Skype, Doodle, all those different tools. And then the students get an email with the names of their team members and the contact that is the email to begin with. But from that point on, they can choose how they want to communicate. And so the vast majority of the students use probably at least occasionally Zoom or Skype. They probably use Dropbox to share documents, often Google Docs to maybe share and co-edit documents. And so this way the students, first of all, not only we don't have to develop our own platform and compete with the already available wonderful free tools, but also the students learn how to use those tools so that they can keep using them even after the project is over. So we don't want to log them into some sort of a platform that they don't have access to after they graduate. So this way they can continue using those same tools that they learned as they worked on the project. Now, for most of the students, X-Culture accounts for part of the course grade. So out of the 6,500, probably about 2, maybe up to 2,500 are MBA and other master's students. And then the other 3,500, 4,000 are undergraduate students. And so for them, X-Culture is part of the course, usually accounting for about 30% of the grade, although we do have some classes where X-Culture is the course. Like, for example, in fact, one of the courses I teach, 100% of the grade is basically X-Culture. But usually it's about 30, sometimes plus or minus a few percentage points. So the professors will leave it up to the professors how they want to distribute that grade. So some professors assign more weight to the quality of the report itself. Some assign more weight to the peer evaluations, but usually it's a combination of all of those. But importantly, for the teaching purposes, if any of you decided to enroll your students in X-Culture, we always see it more as an exercise, not so much as a test. So for us, the process, the collaboration of the team members towards the report is as important, or perhaps even more important, than the final document they produce, what's in it. I mean, yes, the quality of the documents matters a lot. We have real clients waiting for those answers. But as I said, it's one of those cases where it's not so much about the final product, but about the journey, about the experience, about the maybe even sometimes some struggle getting to that final product as the students deal with, as I said, sometimes maybe some tensions in the team, maybe some differences in the calendar, in the holiday schedule, in the time zones, all kinds of perceptions that are different because of cultural differences. So that is where the real value of the project lies. And when the project is over, the students receive, used to be only the certificates. In fact, I have here an older copy of one of them. But also because we were getting hundreds of requests for recommendation letters, now we by default give each student also a detailed performance review, and then the students take a bunch of tests during the project, like cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence. We give them the results, but then most importantly, a recommendation letter. And so we've received literally hundreds, probably by now, maybe even over 1,000 emails from students who tell me the same story, that I was in a job interview and there were many other candidates and I didn't look any different. Just like everybody else, I went to a university, had good grades, maybe some work experience, but everybody has it. But then I pulled out my ex-culture certificate and I told the interviewer that I completed a project for a real company working with people from 7 different countries. So that's where, the interviewer wakes up and says, oh, tell me more. I've never seen anyone like that. And so the student gets the job. Over these years, we've had over 75,000 students who have participated in X-Culture. So we have a big alumni network now. And so get a lot of interesting stories from students. Sometimes years later, like literally sometimes I get an email from a student who says, I participated in X-Culture 7 years ago. You probably don't remember me, but I just wanted to tell you that over this, my career, I've been using that same skill and knowledge and, competencies that I got through X-Culture. And so at that time I struggled, it was difficult, I didn't like it. But now looking back, I actually find that it was a very important exercise for me, and it had a, profound effect on my career. So when I get those emails, I'm very happy about that, tells us that we are doing something right. With the clients, we do have live webinars with the founders, CEOs, managers of the company, just like the one we just had. And so this way the students have a chance to interact live with the client. So this way it does feel like a real consulting project. And then another thing that happened, I think it was also 2014 or 13 the first time, some of our professors started bringing students to conferences like the Academy of International Business, Academy of Management, sometimes as co-authors, and sometimes students even wrote their own papers based on the X-Culture experience. And so at the point when it became sort of big enough to ignore, we started teaming up first with the Academy of International Business, and I believe the first joint conference we had was in Miami in 2013, Fort Lauderdale in 2013. But since then, we had one every year in the fall, jointly organized with the Academy of International Business. But then the demand was so big that if we allowed all of the students to come, it would just simply overwhelm the conference. There would be more students than professors. So starting in 2017, I believe, we started organizing our own self-standing events in the summer. So there would be more students, there would be up to 200 people, professors and students. And so we did the first one in Miami, then we did one in Italy, in Macerata, we did one in Canada, in Calgary. This year it was supposed to be in Singapore, but because of COVID, we had to postpone it. So we'll see where and how soon we will be able to do the next one. But for this symposium, that's the opportunity for the students to meet their team members face to face. So we invite the best students, the members of the best teams. We always have a lot of visits, company visits, meetings with the, like in Calgary, with the city mayor, with the, city officials, some politicians, community leaders. A very effective, very kind of intensive week. Usually we do it for the whole week, where students do some lectures and, sightseeing and business meetings and presentations and, all kinds of stuff like that. Another interesting thing that happened, and again, it's a very interesting research opportunity that we haven't fully explored yet. So first we started seeing that we had many students who wanted to participate again. So we would get quite a few emails every semester from a student who says something like, I participated last semester, I really liked it, can I do it again? Not as part of the course, I just want to do it for fun. And so we would say, yeah, I guess, sure, why not? But then there were some students who did it like 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a row. So there was this one student from Austria, Heinrich Pfeifke. he did it like 5 times in a row. And so at that time we thought, hey, you know what, maybe we can actually use the experience of these students in a more productive way. And so we created what we call the X-Culture coaching program, where the best students from the last semester become coaches, mentors, sort of big brothers and sisters to the new X-Culture students. Yes, Emil, you had a question?
Sorry. It's okay. I first finish, please. I have many questions because, by the way, I'm doing absolutely the same what you are doing, but on the very small scale.
Oh, yeah. I would love to learn. Yeah. So we are always eager to exchange experience. But yes, so the coaches, like this semester, we have 142 coaches. So students who have received additional training, so they have to complete 16 training modules, how to give feedback, conflict resolution, communication, things like that. So, and then the coaches essentially become, mentors. So they can provide feedback on the draft of students' work. They can help when there is a conflict in the team. They can, they organize webinars, instructional things on all kinds of topics, not only related to the project, but sometimes even, things like career management or maybe graduate education. So the coaches, do all kinds of things. But so this way for the students, we kind of get a lot of free helpers who can help when we need help. Because again, we have over 6,000 participants. Obviously it takes an enormous logistics effort to manage all of that. And we don't really have any staff, so it's set up more as a collaboration, not as a business. We do have a couple of people who are sort of employees, like the IT guy, and we have one executive assistant. But overall, we rely on the coaches to do much of this sort of everyday management. But for the coaches, it's a wonderful opportunity because they used to be the members of the teams. Now they get to be coaches and managers, essentially. So that's an even more valuable experience. So they see, observe close to 1,000 teams, day in, day out, every day, they see what's going on in those teams, how the teams develop. So it's a very, very valuable, unique experience that even seasoned managers often don't have. I mean, how many people have access to this number of teams? So just to conclude the teaching part, it does work. We published a lot of papers specifically on the kind of pedagogical aspect of the project, on the, does it, help teachers or not? And so we know that, yes, it improves student satisfaction with the course. So students do evaluate courses with X-Culture higher than the control condition where, like, for example, I taught multiple sections of the same course and I would assign X-Culture to one section and then something else to another. And we had a bunch of professors like that. So teaching evaluations go up. Cultural intelligence goes up both from before to after and compared to the control group. Performance improves. The students who perform the second time do a much better job. They're more likely to be team leaders. The team is more satisfied. The quality of work goes up. So the students improve, show a dramatic improvement on the second run. So which we hope means that they learned something in the first round. So we published not so long ago a paper in the Academy of Management, Learning and Education, where we actually detail some of these sort of, utility analyses. So how much X-Culture matters. But ultimately, as I said, X-Culture is set up sort of, I call it a time machine. So the main point here is that it's designed to resemble a real business corporate environment as much as possible. So we have real clients, we have real cultural diversity. They use the same tools that the people in the business world use, same Zoom, same email, same Skype, whatever else. And so the whole idea here is that the students sort of see the future. So the types of challenges they experience in teams will be very similar to the types of challenges that they experience in the workplace. And so the idea here is that the students, sort of prepare for the real international collaboration when they do it as part of their job tomorrow when they graduate, and so have to do it as, for real. But also from that perspective, it gives us a wonderful opportunity for research, because the whole point here is that we model X-Culture on the real workplace. And again, this is my transition to research here. So we've published many papers. We've had 6, 7 dissertations already defended using X-Culture data, and we have probably about a dozen in development now. And so one of the questions, obviously, that comes up all the time is, oh, those are students. Can you really do research using students? And so I'm actually working on a paper now for JIBS with a couple of colleagues, specifically addressing that issue. And so kind of to condense the whole paper to a couple of points. Yes, using students for business research sometimes may be inappropriate. For example, if you study a topic where there is a maturation effect, where people change their opinions as they get older, maybe when they marry or have a job, like if you wanted to measure some political view differences in different countries, yes, students wouldn't be good enough because younger students have different perspectives, different views. Or if you would like to study behavior, and so what often happens with, like psychology researchers or management researchers, they give students a little simulation in class for 10 minutes and then use that as a proxy for behavior in the workplace. So they observe students for a few minutes in some sort of a game or activity, and then they make generalizations to the employee behavior in the workplace. No, that's not good enough. Not the real conditions, not the real incentives, not the real cultural diversity, not the real everything if the students sit in the classroom. Yes, you can play Bafa or whatever other game as much as you want, but if the cultural differences are not real, it will not generalize to the real global virtual teams. With Xculture, it's different. One, the settings are very real. The time zones differences are real. The cultural differences are real. The geographic dispersion is real. So these are real global virtual teams, not a simulation. The task is real. So it lasts for the whole semester, not just a few minutes in the class. There is a real client. The client is very interested in the project. The client offers all kinds of incentives. Many people get aftermarket commission, like real money. The best students get invited to the Xculture Symposium. Many get stipends, again, real money. So it's not quite the same as a real salary, but it's definitely much more than, you did this little exercise and I'll give you a little bonus to your grade. No, this is a big deal. Plus, again, the project accounts for a substantial portion of the course grade. And again, if you fail the project, you fail the whole course. Again, so the incentives are very, very strong. It's not just, complete the survey, I'll give you a little bonus. It is a real long-term consulting project. And so it's probably as close as it gets to, to the real deal. Most importantly, and that would be my last point before we start discussion, when you study teams, teams are notoriously difficult to study because, and this is very important, because there are not many teams sort of in the wild, not many teams out there. And what I mean by that is that there are many organizations, in fact, most organizations use teams, but how many teams does a given organization use that work on the same project at the same time under the same conditions? So if you wanted to study teams, let's say you are super rich and super lucky and you get hold of the entire, Microsoft or Google or Toyota, whatever big company. The problem is that even though these companies have tens of thousands of employees and many teams, first of all, you probably will not be able to observe more than a couple of teams just to begin with. Second, even if they told you can observe anything you want, each team works on a different project, different timeline, different management, different task. And so you cannot really compare them. And so this is why when you look at literature on teams, from my experience, and I've done a lot of meta-analysis, including on the topic, like 80%, if maybe even 90% of the studies are literally case studies. So, when we're talking about real teams, so it's either a student team or a few teams, like in a class. I had 50 students, I split them in 10 teams, and they did something for 20 minutes in the class, and I was observing them. Not good because it's still not many teams, but also those are students, and it's a simulation. It's not a real, international team. It's not a real, business project. Not good. If you get access to the corporate world, in most of the cases, you do a case study. You observe one team, maybe 2-3 teams, and that's all you can do. In a few cases where you find a study that looked at real corporate teams and there were more than 10 of them, usually that would be a call center where I'm not even sure if you can call them teams, but it would be like a large call center. And apparently somehow people who pick up the phone are organized in sort of teams. But you don't really have the real interdependence that you have in a team. You don't really have that same sort of team feel that you would need to study the topic. And so with Xculture, yes, these are students and they are not real sort of employees, but they're very close to that. So as I said, the design of the project, the duration of the project, the stakes are kind of close. I would say it's about 80%, of a real corporate team. But more importantly, we have over 1,000 of them every semester. We can observe them every single minute. We collect a lot of data. We collect over 2,000 variables. So we know what's going on in those teams. We know the background of the students, demographics, cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence, IQ, cultural values. We know everything about how they communicate. We know everything about leadership. We know everything about conflicts in the team. So we get a very, very detailed view, like, a microscope view, as opposed to with corporate teams, maybe you would be allowed to watch some of the meetings and maybe conduct like a quick survey at the end, or maybe a few interviews. So here you have almost as good when it comes to the settings and the sample, and infinitely much better when it comes to the actual quality of the data. And so from that perspective, yes, I think it's a much more superior type of data set than what you reasonably can get in the real world, because as I said, yes, it would be nice if you had 1,000 real corporate teams, but it just physically, practically impossible. And so when you have a choice between a couple of corporate teams with very limited opportunities to collect data and to do some manipulations, maybe do some experiments, versus you have 1,000 teams and you can do all kinds of experiments. I mean, obviously within ethical standards, but all kinds of observations and experiments. I'd say what we have is probably as good and probably much better than whatever anybody else has. And so I'm going to stop here. Maybe you have some questions. So let's maybe turn it more into a discussion, because I can talk about that all day, obviously, but hopefully that gives you a good overview of sort of what this project is.
Okay, Vas. Well,
Thank you.
Sorry, Ursula, here.
Thank you, Vas. This was really a great introduction to what you're doing and the extent of information you collect, and also the science that you publish in the top journals. I mean, they take it on. So here we go. And from that perspective, I can only say, as one of the participants with my students, and that was in London, and it was absolutely amazing how that experience shaped the people. And I mean, I had a little bit of a different setup, because I only took the best students from what I was teaching before and sent them to the 3-month period of experimental work, basically, with you. And it was fascinating. They came back and were excited. And the people came from all different countries and benefited from the knowledge of other people from other countries and how they really behave in a setting where they have to solve problems.
Yep.
So it speaks absolutely for the great type of X-culture, what you have created.
Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, and let me also take this opportunity to thank you, Ursula, and professors like you, because as I said, X-culture, it's not a business, it's not a company in a traditional sense, it is a collaboration of professors. And so it is thanks to professors like you who are trying to give their students something extra that we can do something like this. I mean, every professor, and again, I'm not sure if there are any colleagues here of yours or managers, but yes, the professors, when they enroll in X-culture, they sort of, make some commitment in terms of, there will be more questions from the students than if it were a domestic project. It does create a little extra work for the professors. And so, as I said, thank you so much, because of you.
You mark them, absolutely. But it's great, you learn a lot, absolutely. I mean, I learned on the journey also a lot as a teacher, educator. Thank you.
Yes.
So I give it to the floor and ask people to chip in with their views, with their thoughts, with their questions. I don't know whether we can put. Okay, go on, Emil. You waited
I'm
for
raring
ages.
to go because, as I said,
you shoot off.
Firstly, thank you very much. Vas, that was very comprehensive explanation and intriguing. The point is here that we do absolutely the same. I don't want to, of course, to take your patent on X-culture, but what we do on the only difference what we do in the Nottingham Trend is on the scale. We have special models who are called like international consultancy project and international experience. And what we do, we have also students with a background from many countries, and we have a partners, long-term partners, our university, I mean Nottingham Business School, in Europe, outside of Europe, and we sign agreement with those partners, and they prepare for our students such an international consultancy project or international experience by contacting the companies in the region or in the country, and then we go there. That's the big difference, right?
Mhm.
Because our students have an additional value when they are physically present there. And when I say our students, doesn't mean only English students. We got
Yes.
students from the whole world. So there are students from Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and we go. But of course, now COVID pushes
Yep.
us towards your stance. And we done this now in Varna in September last year. First time
Uh-huh.
is instead of going there, we done whole event online,
Yep.
including visiting the companies, talking to the CEOs
Yep.
and the senior management on the companies with the students. But we can't use Zoom. Yeah, we use by default our team. What is it? Sorry, Ursula, team, yes. What we have to use in Nottingham Trent. We have prescribed these things for such a point. But my point is, what is the incentive? And say, who pays for if you invite the students to symposium, etc.? I can understand additional huge benefit to do this on a mass scale with the universities and professors from whole world. Yes, that's great. You ride the wave of the future education. That's fantastic, really. But how you can control it, and how the English students are very specific. They would complain about
Yep.
marking by different professors, different criteria. So there are a pile of issues which have to be resolved from the pedagogical point of view. Yeah, a student satisfaction, complaints, etc. I'm not arguing about the huge additional value of this mass scale, many countries, and involve many professors. But is this is this part of the course, and what would the incentive of the students, and who is paying for the things like when you invite the students physically to a symposium to Australia or to South or North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, uh, well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And I wonder if maybe we can set up a meeting sometime separately. I
Yeah,
really would like to learn
Certainly,
more about.
yes, by
that's
And
a
all
I
good
will,
means.
idea.
and I will be honest with you, when you said X-Culture patent, no, I didn't come up with the idea. Projects like that have been around for a long time. So the
Right.
first one I saw was done by Miriam Erez from Technion, a university in Israel. And she was doing something like there were only two schools, if I remember correctly, one from New York, I believe, and one from Israel. And so they
Right.
did it for a while. And then there was a similar project also funded by NAFTA, Mexico, Canada,
Yeah.
and the United
Yeah.
States. And they did something. And so I sort of, I don't want to say stole the idea, but the idea was there. What's different with us is that we set it up so that it can run without any budget. So we do have a little budget
Any
now.
budget without any. Sorry, I'm surprised.
Well,
Go
that's
on. I'm all ears.
yeah, there was this global enterprise experience, another one from New Zealand. There was something that I remember, something that UNC Chapel Hill was involved in. So, but usually the way it works is there is a big grant from like the European Union or the government or some sort of a
Right.
grant, and they hire,
Right.
and they do it while the money lasts, and then money stops and the project stops, and they write a book and say, oh, that was cool. With us, from the very beginning, it was designed to run without any budget. So the idea was that we get together as professors. And so at the beginning of the semester, we share the contacts of the students. And I, or now with my assistants, form the teams and send the students the emails. And then every professor sort of helps manage it. And so if tomorrow we lost all of the money, and as I said, we do have a little budget, I'll tell in a minute where we get the money from. But if we lost all of that money, it wouldn't affect us in any way. And in fact, so far, most of the money that we've been able to raise, it all still sits in the account. We don't really use it because there is really nothing, we use some on IT, like a little, a few $100s a month. We use a little bit on, like, for example, like when we send out the certificates, when the students, order them. But that's, we're talking about, very small figures, like up to a few $1,000s a semester, not even tens, just few thousand.
Right.
So the revenue source is we charge $250 per university if the university can pay. And so most American universities have no problems paying. Most European universities can pay, but some say education must be free. So we have the money, but we don't want to pay because education must be free. And then Asia, Latin America, Africa, they say even 250 is too much for us. But several universities pay each semester, so we raise a few $1,000s that way, and that is enough for us, as I said, to maintain the website, I have an executive assistant, so one person who helps me. So we do have a little budget for that. When it comes to the symposium, we don't pay for the students per se, although we do spend some money on stipends from our own budget. But instead, what we do is we allow the students to give us the names of potential sponsors, and we send as many letters of support as needed on behalf of the students. And so in the end, pretty much all of the students get some money. So in many cases from their own university, sometimes from their employers. We had, for example, 7 students from Italy at the last conference. They literally went to the mayor of the city and they said, well, we're invited, here is the letter, would you fund us? And the mayor said, oh, that's cool, I'll pay for you. And we have one teacher from Ukraine, did the same thing. He went to the mayor of his city. I wrote a letter to the mayor, like everything, very detailed. And so the teacher, the professor was able to get a stipend and came to the conference. So in the end, we find ways, we get some money from the companies that participate in the project, towards the student travel stipends. We even had some students who organized GoFundMe campaigns. And again, we promoted on our Facebook. So we have like 250,000 followers. So they get some money that way. So in the end, it seems like everybody gets most of the expenses covered from somewhere, but it's not like we have a big budget and we just give out that money. So we just kind of get creative here when it comes.
Thank you, Vas. That's great. I'd like to go and move to the research side because it's a research seminar. So therefore, I'd like to open it to those who are research active to have the questions they want to find out how the research platform works. Is anyone here who wants to know that a bit more? Marco? Yes,
yeah,
please.
I don't know how to raise the hand virtually, so I raise it physically.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Well, of course, I'm interested in the research aspects of it, but rather than asking about any particular, let's say, research project you have made on this, this platform, I'm very interested in the platform itself, because once you have a platform, you can make, they say, you can answer lots of research questions, based on the same data, or, by tweaking the platform a little bit. I also want to add that I've done research on teams myself, although the teams were entrepreneurial teams. So it was, young people who not only were, let's say, developing ideas, but they were also acting on ideas. They were funding companies and creating products. And I had access to one setting where hundreds of teams every year, were started, and year after year they were there. So, in principle, it could have evolved into something very similar to X-Culture, except that, it takes effort, it takes a network of people to manage these things. And I was doing that in the Netherlands when I moved to England. I was, the distance was a bit of a barrier. But it's also, I find your platform interesting because also it's amenable to an experimental design. And I think you have used experimental design. I see you have contrasted the X-Culture with a control group. And so I was wondering what's the treatment. So what distinguishes the X-Culture from the control group? And I suppose it's some sort of naturally occurring variation, because, some people self-enroll themselves into X-Culture and some don't. But, I think, your research setting is also suitable to administer some treatment that you design. So firstly, I want to understand whether you have done it, and also what sort of designs, what sort of treatments you have used so far.
Yep. So several things quickly. One, we are very open to collaboration with researchers, even if they're not part of the X-Culture sort of teacher team. So if any of you would like to use X-Culture data, we share them freely. When it comes to data, we collect over 2,000 variables. As I said, we measure almost everything we can measure related to the person, to the team, what's going on in the team, but we even collect data from professors to know more about the university. We collect data about countries where students come from. So the data are multi-level, so individual, team, university, country, multi-source, self-reports, peer evaluations, expert evaluations, administrative records, longitudinal. So the project goes, usually there are 11 waves of survey. So from pre to every week until the project is over to post. When it comes to types of data, as I said, we collect almost everything, but when it comes to treatments, it's very different depending on the semester. So for example, we did research trying to understand if collaboration versus competition leads to better quality results. And so what we did is in one semester, there was a competition condition, there was a cash prize, top 5 teams would get, I believe it was $3,000 or something like that. And then, so we would each week we would rank teams in terms of, quality of work that they produced so far. So we tried to highlight the competitive component all the time. In the collaboration condition, next semester, we instead gave students a discussion board and encouraged the students to exchange ideas between the teams. And so we promoted that. We even gave them like little badges and stars for commenting, for collaborating with other teams. So they just as one of many, many examples. Many, as you said, variations occur naturally. Like, for example, we did a series of studies on leadership. And so since we did not impose a leader on team, but teams can choose to have a leader. And because about a third of the teams have a formal election and have a leader elected, other teams may have an informal leader, and some teams choose not to have a leader. That gives us a nice comparative sort of, experiment here. But then we also experimented a lot with team size, team composition, sub-teams within the teams where we would, create a team with sub-teams and tell them about that. So all kinds of things where we can manipulate issues or observe naturally occurring, variations. All of that provides opportunities for experimental design. So, like for example,
but I heard a lot of natural occurring variation mentioned in your examples. I was wondering whether you administer treatment, so you intervene to create heterogeneity.
Yeah, as I said, yes, we deliberately form some teams that are homogeneous. Specifically, we also try to intervene, like for example, all male or all female, again randomly. This semester, for example, we are testing the effects of team contract. So we've kind of gone progressively from no team contract to team contract without training. And then one semester we did a team contract with training. And again, because we do it on a semester basis, it provides us wonderful, nice cohorts. Students cannot choose which cohort they're in, so it's a random assignment. It just happens to be whatever, semester their professor enrolls them. But sometimes even within one semester, we split the teams into multiple conditions. Like when we worked, there was a study on sub-teams. And so we literally split those 1,000 teams into 500 and 500. And so half of them randomly were said, okay, you have 3 sub-teams within your team. We wanted to see how those things work. So many of these variations, as I said, are randomly induced onto some of the teams.
Okay.
And moving forward, if you have some ideas, if you would like to conduct some experiments, again, as long as it's ethical, as long as we can get the research ethics approval for that.
Of course, yes.
We would be very happy to incorporate some new conditions and run the.
Well, maybe if we can linger on, I can just float a couple of ideas at the end of this meeting.
Yep, absolutely.
It's very good. Thank you. Any more of you interested in asking questions? It's very exciting to see that in a virtual world, we have so many possibilities also. And given that people start out now, you have the best experience so far with it. Any more questions?
Well, people are thinking, I will say that X-Culture is especially useful for research for graduate students, if there are any here. You have a limited time to write your dissertation, and usually collecting data takes a lot of time. And so we do already have the data and happy to share them with you. But with professors as well, as I said, over the years, we've had over 70,000 participants in the project, and we have tons of data. And the problem is that it's so much data that we don't have the time to sort of explore and pursue all of the opportunities. And so from that perspective, if new people come with new ideas, especially if they come from somewhat different fields, we are always very interested in that, because otherwise much of that data just sit there and will not be used. Yeah.
I've just seen at the AIB conference someone, a group of colleagues working on the difference between emotional intelligence and cultural intelligence. And it was done in an absolutely fascinating way, where I thought, oh, this is such a great idea. And they have taken it from your platform. And worked.
Yeah, for that.
It was Mariana.
Yeah, Mariana. Yeah, we actually got nominated for the Best Paper Award.
I saw it, congratulations.
The AIB and AIM this year. But yeah, Mariana Gunkel, she's
She's very good.
Person, but she works in Italy now and lived in Germany for most of her life. But yeah, that she did that. She compared emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, and IQ, and you know.
Yeah, it was absolutely fascinating to listen to that talk.
But just as the first step, so if you go to the Xculture website, xculture.org, and if you go for researchers, you have here more information about the data, but then, you know, some of the published papers and then all kinds of, you know, collaboration principles. But if you go to research projects, this is the list of the projects that are currently in development. And so for many of these projects, you can click on it, like, for example, does size matter? So that's a you know, study into the effects of the team size on team dynamics or fault lines. So when you click on this study, whatever description it is, you will see a, you know, like a summary of what the study is about. For some of them, it would be a short summary. For some, it would be a much more detailed description. And you will even often see who is in charge of the project. Like in this case, it's a professor, Justin Kramer, who is managing this. So you can contact him, maybe, you know, exchange ideas or maybe join as a co-author. For some of them, we have, you know, like it would literally say the study is dormant. We started and then sort of other things came in the way. So maybe you can even come and sort of take over that study and work on it. But also when you come with your new study, again, we would be very happy to sort of think about it as almost as a patent. So we will add it here. So you will kind of claim that idea. So when a new person comes and says, I want to do a study on XYZ, we say, well, Mariana Gunkel is already doing this study on this particular topic. And so this way you kind of keep your, you know, idea copyright essentially.
Great. That's good to know, because particularly nowadays, people need to be very careful with ideas. Yeah. And here we can see if someone takes it off, it's visible.
Exactly. And we don't want to end up in a situation where multiple people work on the same study and
absolutely.
You know, publishes it a week earlier. But by looking at these topics here, you can see what kind of studies are in development at this time. And again, maybe there is something that, in fact, I didn't even realize that we have so many. So it looks like 30, 40 studies. So, but that's ongoing. And here you can also see published studies. Again, I think it's not fully updated, so it may be missing a few last publications. But overall, yeah, it looks like it's missing a couple of publications. But it can give you some idea as to what we already have published. And as you can see, we have, actually, I didn't realize we had so many too. So
it's sometimes good to look at it again.
Sorry, Vas, this website is open to everybody. Yeah?
Yes, you just go to xculture.org. Yes.
Google. Okay.
Yeah. If you put Xculture in Google, it will be the first link.
Okay.
And you can find here all kinds of information specifically for research, especially. So you can find all.
And that touches something really important, because I'm just working with the PhD students, and I see that a few PhD students are here. And they are really suffering at the moment regarding data collection and access to data after they have already developed their profiles. So some might find something which they can use and then know that there is a platform where they get data from. So that's absolutely an important point which we can consider for PhD students also.
And Ursula, that gave me also an idea, reminded me that we do have a lot of collaboration between PhD students and our professors. So it is not only an opportunity for you to get the data, but also to develop your professional. So we have students who then invite some professors to be sort of advisors. I've been on the committee, who knows of how many students, but also often that leads to collaboration beyond the dissertation. So the students start working on other projects. But the same thing with professors. So we have now a lot of cases where professors would be invited to each other's university to teach, to do research, do sabbaticals. In fact, quite a few. In fact, it's dozens and dozens of cases now, and sometimes I don't even know. And then, like, I was talking to Alfredo Jimenez the other day, and turns out, so he's somewhere in Australia, because we have Dirk Brunner there, one of our professors. And so now they're going to each other's schools. So they met through Xculture, but it leads to all kinds of other collaborations that are now beyond the actual project itself. So it's an access to a nice, wonderful network of business, management, psychology, international business professors.
Absolutely. It's a great network. I just see, is anyone here who has a pressing question which they want to answer? Get answers for.
Well, if nobody else asks, I can go on.
I want to. Wait a second. I just saw that Meshkat wanted to. Meshkat, did you want to?
Okay, of course. Those who have not asked the question have precedence over me.
Meshkat, did you want to join in?
Yeah, please. I want to put in a thought here. Thank you, Dr. Paz. It was a lovely presentation. Great to hear from from you about X culture. Thank you for sharing the details. So I just want to put a thought out there and get your insights on this. So as you mentioned, while conducting research in a corporate team, we'd be focusing on employees working in 1 or 2 teams, and in terms of student teams, they would be working on assignments. So they're essentially not essentially focused on an industry-based setting. So, but what you offer with X culture is the students are essentially wearing 2 hats simultaneously. They are also students working with an academic setting, but they're also wearing the hat of a business consultant, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So, like when you conduct research on them, the findings could be very intriguing and unique simultaneously, because you're not getting what you can get in a corporate setting, or you can't essentially get that in an academic setting. So how students switch those hats from time to time and sort of maintain their identity within the group would be very intriguing to look at. So what's your thoughts on this?
That's a new idea. I mean, nobody thought about that. So if you would like to do a study on that, by all means, let's talk about it. Yeah, that's a good study. I will also add very quickly one, for the last few years, we have been experimenting with non-students, meaning that we now allow non-student participants in the project. And so we have several hundred of those, basically, you know, corporate employees who hear about X culture from friends and who do it as part of the basically resume development. So the hope is that they will do it, get the certificate, and then maybe we'll get a promotion. So we do have some non-student participants. And second, I never thought about that, but Meshkat, as you were talking about this, it reminded me that last semester when COVID-19 struck, we had many universities that had to cancel the course in the middle of the semester. So they literally had to run the semester shorter, and they said we cannot continue in X culture because the university told us to basically finish the semester now so that the students can go home and not stay on campus. And so one interesting thing happened. Almost all students, I would say probably 75% of those students whose classes were canceled, and we had like 5 or 6 cases like that, they chose to stay with their teams and finish the project. So they said, yes, I understand it's not part of my course anymore, the course is over, but can I finish the project? And so that actually tells me that sometimes the students kind of put that consultant hat more often than the student had, because as students, they didn't have to continue. But as members of the team and as consultants with the client now, most of them, in fact, as I said, a huge portion, like 3/4 of them felt obliged to go through and finish it. And I think that actually tells us that they had that consultant hat on them. So in fact, now that gave me an idea that maybe we should look closer at it and see, maybe there is some interesting research opportunity there, or at least something we can use to argue that student teams in this case are suitable to study team behavior.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many possibilities of research questions, research directions to use. And I think lots of people are just now starting to think what is possible. And that is the great thing of a research seminar like this, that people go away and think what they can do. I hope that we can still continue in our discussions. And when something comes up, I hope you can come and join us again, maybe on an advanced level when we find a topic which would be interesting for you to develop on X culture on the platform or something like that. So it was just for us an introduction and for people to know what you're doing, but we can keep going with that. And I hope I've seen some PhD students on board, so that will be great for them as well to work on, and some might want to use that. I think
and I would very much would like to continue the discussion with the 3 gentlemen. So Meshkat, great idea. So maybe we should think about a study about that. And it seems like Marco also had some ideas for experimental studies. Very, very interested. And then I cannot read. Is it Emil, the name there?
It's Emil, yeah.
Emil, yeah. So maybe we can connect sometime.
Sorry, Emil.
Yeah, Emil, yeah. I really would like to learn more about your project, because as you can imagine, we do have some challenges and, trying to figure out some issues. And I'm curious how you resolve them. Maybe we can borrow some of your ideas.
Okay.
But also, if anything, we can share with you, any information that is useful.
By all means. Very good idea. Yeah.
So, great. So I can see there is a lot of collaboration potential here. And that was the idea, to set up a research seminar at the start of the academic year, and then to keep going. If colleagues want to sign up for X-Culture. I mean, this is a great platform to do. And I have already spoken to people at the university that they could encourage that. So it is a possibility for people to work together. Absolutely.
Wonderful.
So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ursula. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vas, and I hope you enjoy your afternoon after the teaching and the seminar. And everyone else, have a great evening.
Great evening.
And wherever you are, and I know Meshkat, we see each other tomorrow in the supervisory discussion. That's good. Okay. Good evening, and
Sorry,
bye to everyone.
Before we go, can I ask Vas, if Ursula give me your email or something, I'll send you email, we can arrange
I think that's no problem. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
That's easy to
please, my contacts, first of all, they're available online anyway.
Online, exactly.
Yes, Ursula can put us in touch.
Okay, good. So I'll contact you in due course. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone, for now, and see you later.
Yes.